Welcome to the JD Bunkis podcast. Baby steps. That's what you want to see from the Toronto Maple Leafs right now. The standings just don't feel urgent yet. I get the whole American Thanksgiving thing a week from now, and eventually you got to start putting up points. The record has been obviously abysmal as of late, especially. They're just not winning enough hockey games. But you look at the standings and see them. I get it. They're like a few points ahead of Buffalo, but also a few points back of the division. But yeah, 1-4-2 in their last 7. One regulation win in their last 7 games. Not overly inspiring hockey, but yesterday I thought was overly positive. Get the point. Not trying to do moral victories, just trying to tell you what I saw. I saw a team that looks like they're coming out of it a little bit. There are still some big-time problem areas, and I've got Justin Bourne on in about 5-6 minutes. I'll talk to him about some of those, but I saw a team that looks willing to pull themselves out of a hole. There's problems down the lineup. They're beat up. But in a weird way, when I'm watching them, I go, the injuries sort of ended up happening kind of at the right time. For a group that was struggling with confidence and needed some injection of desperation, guys that are 4A players, guys who are trying to break into the NHL, playing around the pieces that you have remaining, which is still most of your roster, by the way, that's a good thing for you. And I feel that when you're watching the game. Like yesterday, the Leafs defended better. I didn't think that it was just, well, obviously, it's not what we've seen from some of these other games where they're just giving up multiple breakaway opportunities or getting killed in transition. They looked like the Leafs from last year to me. They look like the Leafs to me with just maybe like a little less talent, a little less feeling like they would score at even strength or that they would find a way to come through. But the goaltender looks solid. You're obviously going to be a little concerned that you run him into the ground, and the same thing happens with Stolarz if he can't return quickly. I don't love the idea that you once again misread an injury, and it does lead me to question where they're at with some of the other guys based on what happened with Stolarz. It's a theme where I would like to know what exactly is going on with the Leafs, the way that they report injuries, and whether they view this at all as some kind of an issue. Because the messaging that we got as media members was that the Leafs felt compelled to try to reconnect a little bit with the media and with the fan base and be a little more human under Brad Treliving. And not to say that some injuries shouldn't be treated differently. Like Austin Matthews wants more privacy with injuries. Joseph Woll has not wanted anybody to know what went on with him that caused him to miss the start of the season. Those things have largely been respected, right? Like even Matthews goes to Germany last year. People are wondering, people are questioning it because he's the highest paid player on the team. He's the captain. He's a Hart Trophy winner. But overall, nobody ended up really cracking that fully. It just sort of became, well, he had some back issues and this year he's going to be fine. That's whatever. Okay, hockey has its injuries that people like to cover up. That's traditionally a thing. But I don't know why this keeps happening where it's, hey, this guy is basically day to day. Hey, it's a minor injury. And then it turns out to basically be, well, we'll see you when you see you with these dudes. And doesn't the Stolarz thing and the past shape your opinion on how long it's going to be for a guy like Nick Roy or Matthew Nyes or some of the other pieces like Brandon Carlo? I know that one was signaled as a little bit more serious, but I don't understand the benefit to the way that they have handled this outside of they've got a group there that is just continuously fumbling it. Anyway, I think that I saw a team that's coming out of a funk a little bit. That's one of their better games. The question is, what does it say if one of your better games of the entire season, granted shorthanded, results in you still losing to the Columbus Blue Jackets in overtime. Oof. I don't know about that. Justin Bourne of Real Kipper and Bourne and Leafs Regionals. He joins me now. What's up, buddy? How we doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm okay. Honestly, the bar is so low for watching this Leafs team right now that yesterday, just like they played a normal hockey game, and I went, okay,
Yeah.
that's this is fine. This is just kind of like a normal good night. They didn't get the win, but I thought that there were some things that were good from it, a couple of things that were bad from it. But I do want to start with that question, which I just posed coming into you, which is like, all right, these last two games have been better. They've collected 3 points in 4. That's almost the most amount of points you can get. And they've looked more normal. I think they've looked a little bit more desperate. But if you're, kind of struggling to get by the St. Louis Blues, you need overtime to do it. And you lose in overtime to the Columbus Blue Jackets, and these are your better efforts. Yes, they're shorthanded, but what does that tell you?
It's easy to slough off the yes, they're shorthanded thing, but like if they played their out list, their players who are injured
Yeah.
against their players who are in right now in a game, I think their out list wins. So it's really tough to be like, to be anything other than my bar was low.
Mm-hmm.
They played hard and played pretty well. They got a point. I think I watched a game last night, and I think what changed for me opinion wise on the Leafs at all, if anything, and it's I'm more comfortable with Joseph Woll than I expected to be after a few
Yep.
games. I think Easton Cowan is going to be a star, not just a good player, and I think Morgan Riley, it's over.
Mm.
those are my takes.
So I'll start with the positives there. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
I'm gonna kind of skip over Wool because we talked about him a lot last night on Leafs Talk, and I'm just with
Yeah.
you that like when you're watching the team, it feels different with him backstopping them. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't feel as panicky. It doesn't feel as scary every time a puck goes to net. He's quiet in there. He's been great in there. The question mark is just going to be whether or not he wears down from this and if he can stay healthy and continue to look this fresh. But like every goalie guy that you talk to thinks that that is the player when he's on his game. And so it's nice to have a solve to one of the various issues that this team has had, right? Like I'm going to do a little guilty, not guilty, because I loved your column from last week. And I think it's a great premise that you should continue throughout the
Yeah.
course of the season. Like you found something there. That's a
Okay.
good find. In terms of
Narrative busting.
like I don't know, man. It's just digestible. I like it when there's a nice piece that breaks down a lot of the things from an educated guy. And I mean sports educated.
Yeah, not real
Yeah,
education.
I like University of Alaska. But anyway, I want to go through a few of those things, but it was nice to say, like, okay, as of right now, scratch that problem off the board. Like, you no
Mhm.
longer need to worry about goaltending. You had it in the verdict, which was guilty, that they were not getting enough saves. They weren't getting enough quality play there. Cool, it's off the list. The Cowan thing is interesting that you said that. Like, how quickly this can shape your opinion. And okay, I know that this is a bit of a weather vane market, and we're dying for something to be excited and positive about, okay? Right? Like
For sure.
fans criticize the media here as like loving to be negative when, and I've made this point a million times, our numbers are always up when the teams are good.
Not even close.
It's
Oh, that's a bad arm signal to
across
make.
the
It's going up.
board. Everything is better for us when the teams are good, and yet there is like a strong belief that it's like if it bleeds, it leads, and you want the team to be bad. Maybe that used to be the case. I don't know. But today's podcast digital environment does not reflect that whatsoever. Positive is actually what is selling, and you want to be able to have that because, God, it's who is enjoying watching the Leafs play that way? Like every single night, it's awful, and there's nothing that you can pick through and say, oh, I liked that, other than John Tavares, which people
Yeah.
go, yeah, we get it. He's
Yeah,
consistently
yeah.
great.
We year 8, we got it.
Cowan was their best player last night.
Played over 20 minutes.
And he had some real flashes of brilliance. And yeah, I guess let's just start with plain and simple. What is changing your mind then from good player to great player this quickly?
Yeah. His ability to think the game, I think, is you can see the way he plays within traffic and the way he gets open and finds opportunities for himself. And if he's with good line mates, like he's going to get a ton of looks and a ton of points. I guess initially I felt like he was going to get pushed around. He wasn't going to be able to win pucks. And because he's a competitive guy, Like he is in on contact and he doesn't really shy away for it or anything like that. I just thought he wasn't going to be able to do what he needs to do to be effective. But he's already kind of made this, he's adapted his game a little bit to where it's more of a speed game. It's more about finding seams and open space than it is about, winning puck battles and stuff like that. Even though he still hunts pucks well,
Mhm.
I just think he thinks it really well. And then I'll go ahead and steal a word from Kipper. He does have an engine. Like he does have a motor that just goes and goes and goes and goes on a team that some nights doesn't always have a go, go, go guy. So really encouraged by that. Yeah, I don't know, man. Just last night, and I wouldn't say just last night, but I would say the last couple weeks, I've been like, oh, I see it with this kid.
So the motor thing is super interesting, though, because I agree. He clearly has that. And even when you talk to Bukala, for example, right? Like a guy who was a director of amateur scouting, has been scouting his, entire adult life. The one thing he says with Cowan is what makes him special, what separates him is the motor and whether or not he can consistently do that at the NHL level and whether he keeps that. And last night, to me, like his most impressive moment was not the give and go. It was during overtime where it's after a very long shift
Yeah,
and he's already a minute into it with a ton of space and he's still hounding a Columbus Blue Jackets defender.
I
And
know. I actually didn't want him to go back behind the net there, but he clearly has the legs for it.
yeah, that's it. You thought that's exactly right. When he went behind the net, you thought, oh, that's a rookie mistake. They're going to
Yeah,
break it out the other way now, and you're going to be trailing the play. And this is going to result in like the conversation being, hey, Easton Cowan, this is going to be in the film room of don't make the selfish decision. Hey, this is a growth area. And instead it goes the complete opposite way, which is, holy crap, that's what 20-year-old legs can do, right? Like
yeah,
that's
looks so
that's the
fun.
benefit of youth is that this guy's not gassing out the same way. Awesome, really cool moment for him. But the only fly in the ointment for me with this is when you're saying, hey, the team doesn't always have the motor, how much easier it is for a guy like that to stand out amongst a group of
Yeah,
guys that don't do that consistently enough.
yeah. No, it's. I guess that is sort of what do they say? It's damning with faint praise or something. I
Yeah,
forget the
that's
exact
right.
expression, but but
That's right.
but, but it is like it does look bad on everyone else. That you're like, oh, that guy sure tries hard.
Yeah.
But I will say, like, you and I covered Nick Robertson as against the Columbus Blue Jackets in a best of 5 series when he was 19,
Mhm.
and everyone was all excited. He scored a goal on the power play, and I wrote critical articles, and he no awareness defensively, no cutoffs, no helping his teammates. Like, yeah, he could shoot it, and people were all over me that just poo pooing a young guy who didn't whatever they were saying. Cowan's not that. You can clearly see that Cowan is defensively aware. Talk about that motor that he's got, a conscience to be on both sides of the puck. He wants to work. I think of like a Zach Hyman like pursuit of the puck. So, this is not saying that he's these things now, but
Mhm.
I'm saying I see where this goes for him in his career. And so it does change, the conversations about the Leafs are going to sell to add, right? They're going to get rid of guys because they need to improve this team and bring in Rasmus Anderson, bring in whoever. The Cowan thing, no one's off the table, but he sure has changed his status with me.
I would actually say that he is off the table. Like,
Yeah, I
well,
guess till someone's like, we'll give you.
yeah, sure. Of
Yeah.
course, no one's untouched. Like, if Connor
Yeah.
McDavid wants out,
Yeah.
and he's like, I only want to go to the Leafs, and they're trying to facilitate that deal. Clearly, Easton Cowan's on the table, but
Yeah.
and I'm just joking with that. I don't think that's a real
Obviously.
thing. I'm just like, I don't see a realistic scenario where the Leafs move off Easton Cowan this year, considering how little is in the cupboards and also what the rest of the team looks like. And that
Yeah.
sort of brings me to the guilty, not guilty. And I totally get what you're saying. Is if Cowan has, I don't expect him to have a superstar season at age 20. I wouldn't even be blown away if he ends up getting sent back down at this point, based on the way that the roster is
All
composed.
possible. Yeah.
Yeah, like all of this is still very much on the table. And plus, like he might have a motor, but playing 70 games in the NHL when you're 20 and you're that size is probably going to be a Herculean feat for him and something that no one should be expecting. But it's nice to at least get the flashes. And there are the
Yeah.
flashes, the other stuff where I've seen a few moments where he looks like surprised almost by the speed of the game. Like it catches up with
Yeah.
him in a couple of moments where he gets he turns over a puck when he's on the power play, or he's flipped a puck over the
For sure.
glass, or he's had a turnover where he's like, oh my God, these guys are so much faster than what I saw in junior.
Yeah.
But overall, it's like very, very encouraging to have somebody come up with some expectation in a market that really puts a lot of pressure on young guys of pedigree and seem to thrive in it and look totally comfortable in it. But
Yeah.
going back to like why I don't think that he's going to be on the table, this brings me to like the guilty, not guilty portion
All
of
right.
the show. Okay. And some of these are like murky in terms of being able to just give it a flat down the line guilty.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the first question is with him and this roster, and the reason why you wouldn't be selling him is that the Leafs are just overall too slow to fix.
That's quite an accusation, Your Honor.
Like I'm starting
you know,
heavy. I'm starting with heaviness.
yeah. Well, no, I'm going to say that's not true. So I'm
Okay.
saying not
Not guilty.
guilty.
Yeah.
There's two things on that. There's one, I think, is that if you change out a couple of guys on a roster, it can throw off your team speed just in that the other team doesn't know what's on the ice all the time. Like if there's someone who could just, it's like a pitcher. You don't have to throw 100 if you can throw 95 and a nasty 85.
Mhm.
So I think the change of speeds is okay. If you add a couple of guys with some real speed, it definitely could change things. The other thing is they actually have players who can skate who aren't skating fast. And so there are guys who, Morgan Riley, William Nylander is in this group, Matthew Nyes, whose top speeds in their careers in the last couple of years is quite high. But their frequency of getting to that speed, their speed burst per game are way down. So they can skate, they aren't skating often. And part of that to me is just they're stuck in their own zone all the time. They're not having the chance to take it up the rink. And Marner did that for them, right? He was a puck transporter. So you got guys going up the rink a little bit more. If they're able to break the puck out better, if they're able to go to the ozone more, you might get guys skating more, getting to their speeds more. I think it could look different if you just didn't sit in the D zone all game.
Okay, so then when you're talking about swapping out a couple of those players, that brings me to the next thing, which is it's been quite noticeable that a guy like Troy Stetcher pops for the Maple Leafs, that
Yeah.
Dakota Mermis popped for the Maple Leafs, that a game before, less so yesterday, but that Jacob Quillen popped for the Maple Leafs, and obviously we started this conversation with Easton Cowan.
Yeah.
So guilty or not guilty, the Maple Leafs should be desperate to the point where they even consider waiving players in order to make space for guys that play with more urgency and speed to better complement the core of this roster.
Oh, absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yes. So what do I say?
Guilty.
Guilty to
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, they're guilty.
that?
I told you
I
this
love
wasn't
that.
perfect. This wasn't a perfect way of doing this.
um, no, I totally agree, particularly on Quillen and Stetcher. I said on our show yesterday that Quillen has kind of the Bobby McMahon profile. A lot of points in college. He was a senior who won a national championship as a point getter.
Mhm.
Playing in the minors at 6'1", 204 pounds, skates like the wind. Hasn't cracked it offensively at the NHL level yet. Comes up and skates hard and runs into people, and you go, he might make the team based on other attributes, on the skating, on the drive, on being willing to adapt his game. And then once you get there, you can have the McMahon thing where he gets a hat trick one night and you go, oh, we might be able to use him differently. He has some history of this. So Quillen definitely. Stetcher, there's never going to be anything more than what you've seen, right?
Mhm.
Like that's the ceiling. And from there, it probably gets worse. But I don't think that that's necessarily a thing where, like, I'd rather Stetcher's been better than Myers, Benoit, go down the list
Mhm.
basically for me of anyone who isn't in their top four. So I've liked him a lot, but I do like the idea of saying we're going to play the guys who are going. We're going to play the guys who are great. And I think kind of what we're talking about here too is like how bad does Max Domi have to be before something happens? How ineffective does Dakota Joshua have to be before something happens? I don't know, but like I'd much rather have the guys we're talking about here.
I have three guys circled as the you could be out, and that includes Simon Benoit, that includes Max Domi, and that includes Matthias Michelli. I don't
Yeah.
have Dakota Joshua quite there yet, just because one, you did just go out and get him, and he's got
He's had
turn.
some good games too. I was hard on him.
Well, his game is way more quiet than I think everybody expected it to be. Like he's not generating the offense that we thought that he would or that he could, right? That he had a couple of seasons ago in Vancouver. There was a large piece of the belief that if he was reuniting with Berube, that this was going to kind of unlock his perfect game because he was going to be entering a system that he had success in, a team that really believed in him. And I just, yeah, like it's, I used this reference yesterday on Leafs Talk, but it's the Stringer Bell thing. Too many 40-degree days where you look at his game and you go, yeah, it's fine, I guess, but like nothing of real impact. And how many notes are you making about Dakota Joshua every game? That being said,
I think that's a great point.
yeah, I just don't.
0.
I don't think that he is on the verge of you're going. Well, this is a problem. Like this is hurting you. Like Michelli, on the other hand, he's taking a penalty every single night, and he's not really creating anything offensively, and he clearly hurts you defensively. Max Domi, same thing. Like Domi basically is having one flash moment a game, and then the rest of it is panic, panic, panic when he's in the D zone and feeling like a lot of the pucks are ending up in the back of your net. And last night is highlighted by him he legitimately gave a point away. Like he
Yeah,
gave it away.
all all of 3-on-3 overtime is everyone hanging on to the puck until there's a clear opportunity, and he tried to sauce it through 2 people as the last man back.
Right. So
That's indicative of how he handles the puck. Anytime he touches it, he throws it in front of the net and hopes someone's there.
yeah, and I just don't think that's working for them anymore. And it reeks to me again of a guy who is lacking confidence, because what do you do when you're not confident? You try to force something to
Yeah,
happen.
yeah,
And that just feels like his game the entire way through. So it's like to the add to the guilty, not guilty, you're swapping pieces out. Those are pretty aggressive maneuvers. Like
yeah,
Michelli feels less so because he doesn't have term and he was scratched. And the way that they even acquired him was, hey, this is a lottery ticket. If he's not
yeah,
on the roster at the end of the season, nobody thought that that was going to be insane.
yeah,
Benoit, same kind of thing. It's like, okay, it feels like relief pitching. You get a good depth defenseman one year, and then the next year he's not that. Okay, well, no big shakes. Domi feels fundamentally different, where you're looking at it and going, he's on year 2 of a 4-year contract at almost $4 million a season. That
yeah.
feels like a far more severe breakup if it ends up happening.
Yeah, I know you see this coming, but like I do like Michelli more than you.
Mhm.
Um, I thought last night if Cowan and Michelli switched numbers 53-63, you'd have watched Michelli's game and thought, oh, it's pretty good, because if he was a young kid with talent, or you could see where it was going to go. Michelli's not old; he's 24. I thought he created, with some speed and stuff, but I do think that you cannot have a team with Michelli, Domi, Robertson, Cowan, all these small guys,
Mhm.
particularly the first 3 I mentioned, heading into playoffs and be a serious threat. Like I can't see Michelli's game working in the postseason. I just can't. So I like him fine to help them get some points, but yeah, it's not exactly there, is it? And so when Tree comes out and says the team's been too vanilla, it's the guys you're talking about specifically, and Joshua just has to find a way to get involved, do something to get noticed out there. I haven't minded Nick Waugh. People kind of lump those guys together, but I still think there's something there with Nick Waugh when he gets back.
Yeah, they're lumped together because when they're playing together, the line doesn't have great impact. But the other night when
No,
they did the Wah, Cowan, Nyes line, I went,
love it.
okay, like
Yeah,
there's something to this. This was working.
yeah,
And then of course the 2 guys end up getting hurt, so you don't get an extended stretch of it. But I'm with you that at the very least you look at Nick Wah and say, all right, that's a player that you can envision on your playoff roster. Where exactly
yeah,
he is in the lineup is up for debate, but the idea that he would be in the group that could potentially get removed, I think, is completely off the table for them at this point.
yeah,
Okay, so then guilty or not guilty. You mentioned that a lot of these guys are not reaching their top speed at the same rate, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
most of that ends up getting put down to effort, and a lot of it ends up getting put down on, well, if they're not breaking the puck out this way and they're getting hemmed in their own zone, then of course they're not going to get as many opportunities. But how much of what you're seeing in terms of these struggles has to do with the system? And guilty or
Mhm.
not guilty, the coach has a system that doesn't match the talent.
Guilty, guilty as charged. You know, I have asked a couple of coaches about this. Actually, one of my favorite questions to ask a coach when we come on is that: do you have a system you like to play, and then you get your team to play it, or do you look at your roster and tailor a system to it?
Mhm.
And you do get different answers. And the coaches I tend to think are good coaches tailor their system to what they have. Right? How do you utilize the actual tools you have? I just think Berube likes to play a certain way. I think everyone's obsessed with Florida and the way they've won 1-2-2. We're just going to get it in. We're going to bang. We're going to get it back. It's like if you don't have Sam Bennett and Brad Marchand and all these other guys that love to play that way. It's just, it doesn't work that way. And you can't
Mhm.
pretend it's gonna. And unfortunately for Leafs fans, if that's the same theory and system that worked for the Blues, they had a big team that got it in deep and played a team style and got after pucks. And so I understand why Berube knows that that system can work, and it can work. I just don't think it can work with this group of players. And so he might have to be a little bit more adaptable. And God, we used to make fun of the Sheldon Keefe and Kyle Dubas regroups and the possession and hang on to it and all that. But this Leafs team can't defend. Right? You go through their forward list, and I'm like, oh boy, they got Domi out there with Nylander. They got Robertson out there with you go through the list. Joshua, it doesn't matter. None of them defend very well. I'd rather they had the puck and didn't forfeit it so much. A little bit more of the overtime strategy where you say, guys, we just need to hang on to this thing because we're not great at getting it back.
So there's a few layers to this. One is that's across all sports. Like being a coach that can tailor the game towards your personnel, that that's not like I think it tends to be the good coaches. It's like, no, that is the good coaches. Like
Right.
that is the right way to do things. It's like this isn't college athletics where you go out and get guys and they're supposed to fit whatever it is the coach is doing and to be able to execute the plan, right? Like this
Yeah.
isn't Syracuse where you're saying, well, we want to get guys who can play the zone. They, it's the NBA. You got to be able to adjust for who you end up drafting into these spots. And I
Yeah.
think hockey, out of all of the sports, is probably the one that gets left in the dust the most because there's only so many systems, and people kind of go like, well, it often really looks the same when you're watching an entire game. It takes
Right.
somebody like you who's breaking down copious amounts of film to be able to like truly discern what the differences are.
Yeah.
What I would say with these guys is like, if there are questions as to whether or not they've quit on the coach, right? And
Yeah.
whether or not you need to end up eventually having a change should things uh, not improve. My thought would be if you are a group of players that are being told you have to play this way, you have to play this way, you have to play this way, but you're not really capable of fulfilling your potential that way, and
Mhm.
there's multiple of you that are feeling that it's not a conscious, I hate this coach. Like, I don't want to play for this guy. I want him out of here. It's just how can you feel like you're showing up to work every day and giving your best self when you're not put in a position to succeed? I think that anybody in any industry could relate to that.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. It's like, if someone had told Shaq, I had a coach who was like, you're just going to shoot threes. We want
Yeah.
you to shoot threes. And he'd be like, I'll do it, but it's not going to
Spread the
go
floor.
good. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, this is not going to be great for us. So, yeah. And at the same time, though, there's the other player part of me that's like, okay, maybe you're frustrated. You don't feel like that's the way you're best being utilized, but you have to do it.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. You still have to
That's what
do
the
it and do
money's
your
for.
best at. What's that?
That's what the money's for.
That's what the money's for. Absolutely. It's like this is not everything is about getting you to the highest point total you can get for your contract. We're trying to win.
Yeah.
Sorry, you're gonna have to put your personal priorities aside. And this is what we're doing. And so it's not solely to blame on one part or the other. I have been a foremost Austin Matthews apologist over the years,
You are
but a lot of this,
you are like the head of the directory.
I'm the man.
Yeah.
I'm the guy. And this guy had to be the one to show everyone behind him
Mhm.
that is not the way I want to play. I don't want to dump the puck in. I'm Austin Matthews. But this is what we're doing. This is the coach. This is the way we're doing it. And he seems really resistant and reluctant and hesitant and mad and dour and sad and upset and pouty and frustrated. And sorry, I'm just running through my thesaurus here.
Mhm.
He doesn't seem happy.
Mhm.
And I think that sets a tone for the rest of the guys who go, yeah, we don't like this either. And all of a sudden it creates an internal mutiny of sorts.
I think that it's a two things can be true situation.
Totally.
That the coaching staff is being a little stubborn with the way that they're playing, but that the players are not giving a maximum effort to buy into what it is that they're trying to do. And it's a little surprising given they did have success with it a year ago. And
Yeah.
like, was last year covered up in some places by like elite goaltending, for example, like no doubt about it. But you could just look at it and say that it worked better. But when I think about a tenacious forecheck like the one that Florida has, that's full of guys that you're worried about when they're coming in on you. And the
Yeah.
Leafs have how many of those guys? Like
Mhm.
Austin Matthews will turn you over. You have to be aware of him, but he's not going to hurt you.
Yeah.
Matthew Nyes, same thing. He's going to turn you over, not likely to hurt you.
Mhm.
Then who is it? Like,
Yeah.
who is it that is like, oh my God, you don't want this guy bearing down on you, and
Yeah.
you've got to be able to
The
make a play
idea
under caution. What?
and that's the idea of what you're talking about is that you rush them to make
Yes.
quick plays so they turn it over. And if they don't feel like they have to get rid of it because they're going to get pounded, well, they'll just put it in their feet, take the contact,
Yeah.
and go with the other side.
But that's it. Like, from a personnel standpoint, to me, when we're talking about like them being a hard forechecking team, they're not fast enough and they're not nasty enough. And so at
Mhm.
that point, to me, a quarter of the season has actually given you enough of a data point to say, I don't know if this is who we are as a group unless we're willing to make one of those drastic personnel changes. And again, that to me is very muddy in terms of what it is they do. Like, Elliott put out the thing that, hey, they would be potential. I don't want to misquote him. I know Elliott hates that, but he essentially alluded to, if they were going to remove from the roster, that two of the guys that obviously you would look at is Brendan Carlo, who
Yeah.
Myrtle was on with me a couple of weeks ago saying they were shopping him during the offseason. Like, they
Yeah.
were interested in moving off of Carlo. So he's certainly not safe. Riley's trickier because he has the no movement clause. But guilty or not guilty, they haven't been aggressive enough with Morgan Riley and his contract situation and put the pressure on him, and that this kind of does need to potentially start happening now.
Guilty.
Yeah.
I'll look at two examples. One, I got a text from a guy who worked with the Leafs in like back when I was around there, 2015 to 17, and he just texted me, Morgan Riley's still their number one DA. Like, that was the whole text, was just, he's still their guy, huh? It's like, and I said, yeah, and he said, that's crazy. It was just like looking at this thing a decade later that hasn't broken through, that's fallen short of expectations, that has all this potential, and the whole time your top D man has been the same guy, and he's bulletproof, right? Like, we all like him so much as a person. He's just such a thoughtful guy, and he's talented, and it's another case where you talk about Cowan's motor versus the team. It's Riley's offense on the back end versus who they usually have. He looks like Cale Makar to us some nights, but it's crazy that he's still their top guy. And the other comparison, I think, is Stu Skinner in Edmonton, where I don't know if you can get better. I don't know if you can go get a better goalie right now, but you just have to go get someone else. And that's kind of where I'm getting to with Riley, where it's like, I don't know if they're better without him. I just know it doesn't work with him. That's the only thing I'm sure of, is it's not working with him. So I'd be open to seeing what else you could do just to see what a different look looks like.
I think everyone would. And
Yeah.
you and I, how many years now have we been doing shows together?
I don't know.
Like
8.
Yeah,
Lots.
a lot. And we have had one through line conversation the entire time, which is, all right, you work with the same people over and over again, and things continuously go like a similar way, and it wears on you. And I don't know how the collective trauma of this group and having the same things transpire over and over again doesn't wear on them, even if part of it is subconscious. And Morgan Riley is kind of the head of the snake of that for me right now. Like, when everyone talked about like, hey, they need a forward shakeup and they need to break up the core four, I agreed. I thought, you know what, at some point this needs to change. You can't keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. But Riley now feels like, when they did the DNA change and the way we want to change the way that we play, and how many different defensemen he has had, and over the year, it's like, we need to find the partner for Riley. And we have basically a month of Luke Shen doing it very well, and the rest of it is wanting. And
Ron Hainsey?
sure, but that's a decade ago.
It's a literal decade ago.
Yes, that's so long ago. It's time to park that. It's time to say, okay, twice with two veteran defensemen that completely stayed at home, and it worked over a small sample, that this is working here. I think it's time for a change. Okay. I want to move to a couple of other things just before you go. One is, you are, you're Islanders royalty, you and your wife, right? Like, you're part of the family. And I'm sure Matthew Schaefer has, to a degree, like, changed some of your feeling as just being a hockey fan, right? Like, I think that you're not someone who's like a fanboy of the team. You're not waving pom-poms by any stretch of the imagination, but you get somebody who's this exciting, and it's hard not to just be like, wow, I'm really enjoying this. I want to turn the TV on, versus what, the last how many years of Islanders hockey that you've watched. This has to be like right at the very top, just from an individual standpoint. My
Yeah.
question to you is, you tweeted something about Evan Bouchard the other day, right? And Chris Pronger went at you, and I went, "Oh, poor Bourne," because that's like the dead last guy on social media I want disagreeing with me about a defenseman.
Yeah. Listen, if Chris Pronger's available, put Chris Pronger in, but I'll handle him on Twitter.
Sure. I like that confidence. There's like a real question with this Team Canada roster of how many young guys you're putting on, right? Like, what is the balance? What is the quotient of bringing skill and guys that are just performing at an incredible NHL level to maintaining the identity of Canadian hockey and satiating some of these guys who are dying to play for Team Canada, who didn't get an opportunity for, again, a decade, and finding out like the mix of, well, are you bringing Bedard and Celebrini and Schaefer? But where does Schaefer land on the ledger for you? Because I think that there's a case to be made that it's actually a more obvious path for him, given what their blue line looks like versus their forward group.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting point. The Schaefer thing has been, I think, a breath of fresh air for NHL fans. Like, his personality he's not shy in the slightest bit, and he's boisterous and dynamic, and he's exciting. It's really cool to watch. Um, you know, one of the things with, we get excited about these young guys,
Mhm.
and one of the debates I'm writing about Team Canada today is, when we have these young guys that are early in their development arc and we know that they're going to be superstars, you don't want to leave them off, because it looks silly to say we didn't take Crosby in 2006
Yeah.
or whatever. But like LeBron wrote an article today that should Canada take Bedard or Tom Wilson? And you'll run into hockey fans who are like, what do you mean?
Mhm.
Connor Bedard is a huge name, a star to be, whatever. Tom Wilson's a full grown man who's played in big hockey games and won a Stanley Cup. Is Bedard better for us than Tom Wilson right now? And honestly, man, I don't really know how I feel about it. Like, Matthew Schaefer is so electric and so dynamic out there. But if you watch Islanders games, at the end of the game, they don't play him against the best guys. Like,
Mhm.
they put out Adam Pelech. Adam Pelech plays 3 minutes to every one that Schaefer plays against top competition. So they kind of protect him. Can you protect a guy in the Olympics? I don't know that you can. So I genuinely, like, as I'm having this conversation with you and I'm about to write this article, I'm still not sure where I prioritize. Obviously, going to be a generational superstar versus guy who's really a man today and can do it.
I lean more man today.
So you'd rather see Wilson over Bedard?
Well, again,
I know,
you say it, and to speak those words out loud makes you legitimately a moron.
but I think you're right. I think you're right.
What I would say is there's a few different things that are tricky for them to balance. I think it's very important for these young guys to be a part of teams that involve Brad Marchand and Tom Wilson and Mark Scheifele and Sidney Crosby and Nathan McKinnon. And I know that they're going to get more of a chance to be around McKinnon, and that McDavid is this incredible torchbearer in terms of Crosby handing it to him, going, this guy cares as much as I do, and you're never going to worry about the effort, the compete level, the confidence that you have with him on the ice. Like, that is an incredible luxury to have as a nation, that we've never worried about who the torchbearer is from a, like, does everything the right way standpoint. There's a
Yeah.
gravity to that with Team Canada that has been passed on perfectly. And I look at someone like Macklin Celebrini and I'm like, man, I kind of think maybe you're that next guy even more so than Bedard. But having a
Mhm.
Bedard and having a Schaefer around that group and being able to like transplant some of that DNA onto them and go like, this is what it's about. Look how seriously these guys are taking it versus what you've experienced, say, for the World Juniors, where Canada doesn't play the Canadian way at the juniors the last couple of years. It's very much like they look like the rest of the world, and it's a skill game. And not to go too deep on this, even though this is kind of what you and I do, but I worry at times that we as a just society are becoming more of an individual culture rather than a collective culture with like our experiences, our social media, everything it is that we do. And I think that
That's happening. That's real.
that's real, but I think that you're seeing it in sports. And I think you see it across all of professional sports where the buy-in with the group is not the same. And it's more about like what it is that you're doing, what side projects you have, what makes you stand out more than the other person rather than being able to kind of fit in with the team. And I'm not saying that like I have these massive concerns with Bedard or Schaefer or Celebrini, but it really would be nice if those guys could kind of see the way things were done with a group like that the buy-in that comes with a team where guys are superstars and they play a role. Like,
Mhm.
this is just your job on the team, how
Yeah.
effective that is, and the value of future generations being able to benefit from those guys being able to continue the message down, but then
Yeah.
also the skill. But then when you put it like that and you say, like, hey, what do you think is going to be able to be more of the Canada DNA right now in a best on best against the Americans? I go, like, I'm sorry, my gut tells me that it is the Tom Wilson. It is the Mark
And
Scheifele.
you know what? You know what? The whole time as you're saying that, I'm thinking, here's the problem with all that. It's not a development event.
No,
It's
it's
a
not.
right now event.
I know.
It's right now.
Yeah.
And in 2 years when we have the next event, if that guy's ready to play, we'll take him.
Hmm.
And he can figure it out then and be along our great players then. I don't love the idea of like these guys are going to be a part of it, so we should take them. I want to take the guys that help. The other thing is, this is nothing new to you or a shock to hear, but like if you're an NBA team with Steve Kerr on it, you're great. If you're an NBA team with 5 Steve Kerrs, you're not very great.
Hmm.
So, you can't take all the same guy.
Yeah.
And the point with Bedard is like he's not playing ahead of go through the list of Canadians who are going to play ahead of him in offensive moments. You're not going to play him in defensive moments. You're not going to kill penalties with him. Tom Wilson last night, blocked a shot on a 5-on-6 and scored the empty netter. And
Hmm.
it's I know it sounds insane to be like I think Wilson probably does help more, but I guarantee you this is how Canada is. Those guys know that I'm sure they're having these same conversations.
Yeah, it's a win now event. Just win now. I need it.
Just yeah,
Like, I watched the Blue Jays lose by a cleat. I've been watching 20 games of the Leafs be horrible. Yeah, like I just watched my quarterback in the NFL throw 4 interceptions against a divisional rival. I need Team Canada to win badly. So just do whatever you think can win. Justin Bourne, you can watch him later today on Real Kipper and Bourne. Look forward to reading the piece, man.
yeah. Thanks for having me, pal.
See you, buddy. All right. You can subscribe to this podcast on Apple or on Spotify. It really helps the show. Reach out anytime on Twitter and Instagram at JD Bunkis. Quick break. And I want to talk about the Bills. And I'm gonna bring Brandon in, who's a diehard Bills fan. But I'm sorry, the Bills are soft. So I said it earlier this week with Brady Quinn that the NFL is beyond wide open. There is a level of parity there that is unmatched to me from years past, and that's largely to do with the fact that there just is not the same crop of teams at the top of the NFL. The very best of them, which I would include the Rams, the Eagles, and what at this point are we supposed? I guess, but like, are we really doing Broncos, Patriots? Like, which one of those teams do you feel like is just not getting knocked off? I said it. The Bills have more urgency this year because there is a flattening at the top. The Ravens look off. The Chiefs have real potential this week to go 5-6. Like, the idea that the Chiefs are a lock for the postseason doesn't feel it doesn't feel that way to me. Like, there is a path for them to miss, which sounds crazy, and I don't think it's going to happen. I'm just saying that there is a path. And the Bills a week ago come out and Josh Allen has 6 touchdowns, 3 passing, 3 rushing. And that's what inspired the thought of this urgency is like the guy is, in my opinion, and the opinion of many others, it's not even a hot take anymore, the best quarterback in the NFL. But the team around him yesterday, to me, illustrated what their biggest problem is. And that's just that they can get bullied. That a team like the Houston Texans, who arguably has the best defense in the NFL and likely has the best defense in the NFL, like who's in the category with them? It's probably Eagles and Seahawks and Broncos. That's probably the top 4. But that a team like that with far less talent at quarterback, like Davis Mills, can go in there and shove the ball down your throat over and over and over again. That on short yardage third downs, you can't come up with the big stop. That tries to get this run game going, which is part of the identity of the team. There's no doubt about it. James Cook is their second best player. It's Josh Allen, it's James Cook, and then the third best player is, I don't know. I honestly don't know who the third best Buffalo Bill is. You tell me, Brandon Brown. But they're not tough in their running game the way that it feels even with the Eagles at times, where you're like, it's Saquon and it's Jalen Hurts. It doesn't feel like the Ravens, even though Lamar hasn't been the same guy, where it's Lamar and it's Derrick Henry. It's a lesser version of that, despite Allen's rushing ability. And that makes me feel like they're not tough enough either. And so, do I still believe that the Buffalo Bills have a Super Bowl ceiling? Of course I do. They have Josh Allen. But it just feels like we keep coming back to the same place with the Bills, which is like, okay, he's the identity, but then the next thing beyond that is what?
Yeah, you're 100% right, JD. I mean, you look at the way that they played that game last night. They looked pretty good early. The offense is moving, game script at that point, and James Cook, long run. And then after that, it felt like they kind of were scrambling on offense the rest of the game. They had Josh way too many times. He was dropping back in the pocket, and the Texans were just putting their heads down and going after him. And he himself can't make every play, unfortunately. And it is a bit disappointing to see the contrast of the last couple of weeks that we've seen Josh play so great, and then this week just didn't have it. Whether it was the pressure from the defense or just the lack of talent around him, like you're hitting on all those points. It's getting concerning, this level of question around him.
So you got to credit the Texans defense.
Yeah.
Like your right tackle had no hope all game. What is his name?
Oh, while Spencer Brown was in there, he
Yes,
got
that's
it,
it.
and he was injured by the end of the game
Yeah,
too. So that just more problems. Yeah.
I, there was a shot late where they showed him going to the bench and he was sitting by himself and
Yeah.
he's taking his helmet off and sitting there and his knee doesn't look right and his face is just completely exasperated. And I went, that's a crappy day at work, man.
Yeah.
This guy has just been physically dominated, does not have the speed to keep up with the edge rushers. He's getting bullied the entirety of this game. Sucks. He just wants to get out of there, like desperately. But there was a feeling to me, like, again, the defense of the Texans, I don't want to take any credit away from them, even though there's probably not a solitary Texans fan who listens to the show. And so there's no need to fear rebuke from them. That said, we don't do a very good job as media sometimes when pointing out a team's problems and not crediting what it is the other team does well. And D'Amico Ryans has a group of guys that are nasty. And like, how many plays did Will Anderson make last night where you were like, oh my God,
Yeah.
what a player. He's actually, to me, like the heir apparent. There's been like the Luke Kuechly's of the world and the Bobby Wagners and the game's great linebackers of recent vintages. He is the guy that I look at now and go, oh, you probably want to have him. There was like a Fred Warner moment, but he's got hurt again. It's him. He's
Yeah.
the top dog linebacker. They played great. They did a lot of really great things to frustrate them. But there's a few of those sacks that Allen takes in this game where it feels like he's trying to be Superman still, where it's not just, hey, I'm going to throw the ball away. Hey, whatever, we'll live to play another down, because he has that urgency of, well, I got to make something happen. And all of a sudden he's turning into a super hard hit. And by the end of the game, you're seeing the guy take, how many sacks did he end up? 7?
8. Career high
Yeah.
8 he took. Yeah.
8 sacks. And how frustrated he looked, and go, well, that's how you throw them off, is that you get in his head and you throw a kryptonite at him, which is any quarterback's kryptonite, which is like get hit over and over and over again. And how much that changes just the overall aura and confidence of the team. Like, yeah, you got some plays from Shakir. You got a few runs from James Cook. You got Keon Coleman still standing on the sideline because he can't make a team meeting on time. And, they've got, what was it, Dawkins
Yeah.
saying the right things about how they believe in him, but it's time to grow up. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know, man. It'd be one thing if we saw it on the field and it just wasn't there off the field. But now you're combining the two of those things, and I say, yeah, very unlikely that he's going to be the winning lottery ticket for you this offseason. Like, you got Gabe Davis back. They're doing the Gabe Davis thing again. Just the idea that they're going to be able to win multiple playoff games and not run into one of these teams like a Broncos or like a Texans, who just plays hard-nosed defense and forces you to win in a different way other than Josh Allen slinging the ball all over the yard, spooks me.
As it should. I mean, I like you said, I still have faith that they can be a contender, that they can win a playoff game too. Maybe, hopefully reach a Super Bowl. But yeah, it's hard to see them putting it all together when the moment is brightest.
All right. Let's take a quick break and talk to Robert Murray, MLB insider for FanSided, about what he's been learning about the Blue Jays the last couple of weeks. We've been badgering this guy because I love having him. And people cannot get enough. What are the Blue Jays going to do next? Like I said, I watched the John Boy clip 2 days ago where it was reflecting on the ALCS, all the unseen footage. And I was surprised that I was able to do that because the Blue Jays loss was so heartbreaking. But it's the age-old adage is true. The only way to go over something is to get on to a new thing, and that new thing is the Blue Jays offseason, and we discuss it now with Robert Murray, MLB insider for FanSided, one of the absolute best. What's up, buddy? Thanks for doing this.
Hey, I appreciate you having me. Wait, I got to ask before we get into Blue Jays stuff. Is that a Dallas Cowboys poster I see in the background over there?
Let's see. Where do we
I could have swore I saw a Dallas Cowboys thing in the
I'm
corner.
sure there's something. This studio is like a mismatch of a million different things, but I think that there is a Cowboys. There is one. There's a little Cowboys thing that's down in the corner. That's down on that camera angle. Yeah, at the very bottom, right? At the very bottom there. Yeah, why? Are you a Cowboys guy?
No, I'm an Eagles fan, so I had to call that out.
Okay,
Yeah,
well,
so my bad. We got off track.
no, that's actually good. Is like, okay, you're an Eagles guy. I'll actually start with this. Is like, how do you feel about the Eagles this week? Because I already placed a heavy wager on them because I thought the betting line was suspiciously low, and I feel like this was actually maybe a mistake by me.
No, I feel like it's a good one by you because the Eagles defense is awesome.
Yeah.
Like Vic Fangio's got that defense cooking. Like the offense, eventually with all that talent, they got to figure that out, right? I mean, you have Saquon, you have an offensive line. I mean, it's banged up.
Lane Johnson leaves every week.
What's that?
Lane Johnson leaves every week. It's like a few snaps of Lane Johnson, then he comes off the field hurt. But yes, the line is good.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good bet by you. I think you're going to be a little bit more richer by the end of Sunday.
God, I hope so.
Hopefully,
it's just one of those things where it's like divisional game. I think they're on the road, right? It's in Dallas, right? So it was a short line, and I went and I grabbed it early because generally those prices tend to change in the opposite direction with the favorite when it's a short line. So I was like, oh, okay, let me grab this price early. And it's the bet I've thought the most about this week where I was like, oh, God, this feels like a trap line. This is a rat line. I screwed this up. It's just your offense. Like, it would be nice if I could get 1 week or 2 weeks in a row where A.J. Brown doesn't say how much he hates playing there and watch his quarterback overlook him on wide open passes.
Yeah, it's brutal. Like, even his comments yesterday about Saquon, I'm just like, I mean, I respect him saying how he feels. Like,
sure.
I think we need more of that in sports, but man, it's not all sunshine and rainbows there in Philadelphia right now.
We need more of that in sports where it's personalities and guys who open up and are honest and unafraid to be themselves and not just live with the social media backlash. Like, I saw Blake Snell on a Twitch stream talking about Vladdy, right? Somebody put in his chat, like, Vladdy's your daddy. And he read it and he went, go see him in Cancun. But then immediately his reaction was, please don't clip this. When I'm watching the clip, which is hilarious. He's like, please don't clip this. Let me live my life. And it's a reminder that a guy who has been, other than the Blue Jays, nails throughout his career in the postseason, someone who is now a World Series champion, paid all the money in the world, that even when he's just doing his relaxation time, having a little fun, saying something that is like largely innocuous, like Vladdy's in Cancun, that's nothing. That's not real trash talk. That's like the lowest level of trash talk you can possibly have. That his first thought is, what is the social media blowback going to be? And I think that sucks for athletes. But when it comes to A.J. Brown, you're like, hey, man, maybe just stop saying basically how much you hate your quarterback publicly. There's a line of demarcation there where it becomes about you and your personality and how much you just despise someone that you rely on to catch passes. Anyway, good. Totally. We both like the Eagles this week.
There we go. Beautiful.
You know what else people like, apparently, is Toronto. You wrote in your latest write-up that the buzz is that people view it as a destination, right? Like, those aren't your exact words, but that players want to play there. My only question about this is, like, how different is that from years past? Or how different is that even from watching teams get to a World Series? Like, I was thinking about the Yankees the year before, right? Like, they make it to a World Series, and they get this big show against the Los Angeles Dodgers where we get the two big markets in baseball, and they're battling, they're going head-to-head. And my thought would be, like, oh, wouldn't players look at New York as a greater destination from a vibe standpoint, thinking, man, if you can play in front of the Bronx crowd when they're at their greatest and you can cement a legacy there, wouldn't you want to be there? And they had a free agency that was like, Juan Soto left. He didn't want to stay there. And so when you're listening to teams talk about the excitement around Toronto from a World Series, how different is it in terms of, like, people's perceptions are actually changing about that market versus what has kind of always been true, which is, like, a lot of baseball players actually really like Toronto? And how much of the World Series run is pretty common throughout baseball in terms of, like, yeah, everybody gets more excited about a team that gets close.
Yeah, definitely. And also with Soto, like he was very open to the idea of staying with the Yankees. It
Yeah,
was just the Mets ended up making him an offer that he really couldn't turn
of
down.
course.
So yeah, but as far as the Jays go, like I've always gotten the feeling that players like being in Toronto. But this offseason, it just seems like that sentiment is even stronger than it once was. And we even saw with Shane Bieber taking his option for 16 million, which like you could basically view it as 12 million because you would have gotten 4 million regardless if you ended up taking the buyout. So it had people around the league kind of surprised and just overall wondering why exactly he would take such a deal. But that being said, if he's comfortable in that place, he's like you can't fault a guy for wanting to be there. It's a great spot. You have an entire country basically rallying around you. You have a team that's winning. You have a team that's going to spend in free agency. Like the ingredients are there. And you have Vlad Jr. signed long term. You have Alejandro Kirk signed long term, and those were questions that were also like prominent in years past. Is like, what exactly does that future look like? But with those two signed there, you know exactly that you're going to end up competing for a postseason spot year in and year out. So that to me is what also feels different about this. And they have money to spend this offseason. Like I made that clear. We've seen them connected to a bunch of big names already in free agency. I don't want to get any hopes up in Toronto. Like I feel like I think I've told you on the show before, I felt bad with how like it's been some of the reports have been in years past. So I want to make sure I don't say anything too outlandish with that. But that being said, like they're going to be in those markets again this winter
Yeah.
and knowing what they've no or like knowing their success, I think their chances are only going to get better from there.
Well, here's the thing though, to your Soto point, right? Like, okay, sure. Was Soto open to remaining a Yankee, and maybe was it even his preference? Okay, I'm open to that. But a team like the Mets blew him out of the water, and ultimately, as much as we love to talk about the culture of baseball teams and the allure of certain markets, and sometimes it plays out that way, right? Like last offseason, Corbin Burns took less money to go to the Diamondbacks than to play for the Toronto Blue Jays because he had a market preference. But that's also like a strong tie to home. There were a whole bunch of reasons that tie into that. It wasn't just like he looked at it and said, I like the vibe of this baseball team. I see where they're going. And this is purely like I'll enjoy playing with this group of guys thing, which to me feels more of the selling point for the Blue Jays, right? Like it's a very tight knit group with some guys that are tied in long term, that are competitive with the
Mhm.
checkbook, all that different stuff. But one thing you're not seeing with the Blue Jays, with kind of, I guess, concrete reporting, because I think it's very difficult to do, is something similar to what is being doled out with like the Yankees and the Texas Rangers, right? Like the Rangers have basically come out and said, yeah, our payroll is going down. Like it's going to be set at this level. The Yankees have basically trotted out that they're going to have like the $300 million threshold. And that's why the Trent Grisham opt-in sort of seemed to make it a little muddier in terms of how involved they would be with the top end of the market, like the Kyle Tuckers of the world. With the Blue
Mhm.
Jays, they've always seemingly had like this evolving budget where you go like, all right, Shohei Otani's in a different category. You're willing to blow out your spending to get a guy like that, but it changes based on the free agent. Then they are more likely to stick to their valuations. Are you starting to get a sense of whether or not this budget is going to drastically increase, given that they have so much money coming off the books the following season, but also being impacted by a World Series run financially?
Yeah, my indications are that they are going to spend and that you can't rule out any player with them. That means Tucker, it means Bichette, it means Framber Valdez, it means any of these guys. And that's exactly how it should be because they had a bunch of money get brought in during that World Series run. Like it was like everyone in baseball took notice of just what the Toronto Blue Jays did in that postseason race. And they were within what 2 inches of winning it all. I mean, they were close. They
Yeah.
were really close. And if let's say you're a star player, you can think, oh yeah, I might end up being the difference in what gets them a World Series rather than coming up short again. And that's got to be a really intriguing thought. And what exactly does this offseason look like for them in terms of that? It remains to be seen. Like, do they go out and get Tucker? Do they re-sign Bichette? Or do they prioritize starting pitching, which honestly is kind of what I think they should and probably will do, because they have some questions in the rotation. But they're good. They're going to spend this offseason, and it's going to look. I mean, I expect them to add in all different areas of the roster too. It's going to be starting, it's going to be bullpen, and it's also going to be on offense in some sort because I mean they almost have to with some of their pending free agents, especially with Bo Bichette there. But the bullpen market is the one I'm watching with them. They've been connected to some names publicly. I mean, I don't know if they get like an Edwin Diaz type by any means, but yeah, they're gonna be fishing in those waters.
So who
I
do
don't
you
know if that
think?
answered your question or not, but
No, it
yeah.
does. It does because it's like the thing is what I basically am trying to parse through is I see a lot of reports where it's like executives are talking about the Blue Jays and the excitement, and other teams are saying, hey, they should be spending this money because they made so much in the World Series. But like
Yeah.
what we haven't seemed to have gotten is the Blue Jays leaking out from their group that the money's going to impact their spending. That it's like more of a market assumption than it is something that we have as concrete from the Jays, who, by the way, they don't like to telegraph their plans, right? Like
No.
they like to canvass as many people as possible. They're always involved in like a million different names, but actually trying to get down to who they're super involved in, that's always been a lot harder to do. Like I remember they were really in on Nimmo. That one was kind of telegraphed, where it was like they really want this guy, but the Mets blew him out of the water, and it changed their free agent plans basically top to bottom. The other years are usually like they let the market settle in for these guys. They don't tend to jump it, and they wait and see sort of who is available because they've got a collection of guys that sort of sit in a similar pocket. You saw it last offseason where it was like Santander, the market didn't really develop for him the same way. The Blue Jays pounced. Jeff Hoffman, the market didn't develop for him because he failed some medicals or whatever it was with those other two teams. The Blue Jays jumped on him. I'm curious to see if this year they are going to be more aggressive. Like if they're in on the Kyle Tucker types, if they're going to be obviously in on Bo Bichette, if they're going to be in on some of the top end of the relief in the starting pitching market, it would suggest to me that they have to be a little bit more willing to move away from what it's been the last couple off seasons and more into the range of what it was in 2021 when they signed George Springer or when they signed Kevin Gossman, where they said, yeah, no, we're going to set the market for a couple of these guys.
No, for sure. And that's a great point by you. But I was talking about this with somebody else the other day,
Mhm.
and he told me that look at all these top players in free agency in years past. More often than not, they don't sign right away. Like Josh Naylor
Yep.
this offseason was an exception. It's not going to end up being the new norm. It was kind of, to steal your word, it was telegraphed that he was probably going to be going back to the Mariners because they really wanted him. He never wanted to leave, and that fit always just made the most sense. But with Tucker, I mean, Bichette, I mean, Schwarber, like all these guys, it's going to take time for their markets to develop. And we just got done with the postseason matter of weeks ago. The GM meetings were just last week. It's going to take time for these markets to actually develop.
Mhm.
But I do agree that they're going to need to step up and be more aggressive than they were in years past. Because if that can be the difference between landing a player and missing out on them, especially if it's a player you covet, whether that's a Valdez or a Bichette or a Tucker, like you have to. And their case for having these players sign early or earlier than they would previously, I mean, if I feel like it's stronger not to come back to the World Series part, but teams like or players want to win. Like if you build a contending team, players will come. They will see that. They're going to want to be part of that. And the Blue Jays have that. They have the pieces in place. Like, yeah, there's some uncertainty with the roster, like I mean, especially now with Bichette, but also in future seasons with some pending free agents there. But you have that core in place, and that can end up really enticing players who are star level players to try to sign early to come to Toronto.
So you mentioned how you're really curious to see how they play in the relief market, and that's
Mhm.
like an area of fixation for you. So Iglesias signs a 1 year deal, and it's for $16 million. And our Ben Nicholson Smith reported, yeah, the Jays talked to him, but they never gave him a formal offer. And
Correct.
there's kind of like when you look at it, yes, there's Edwin Diaz, but then there's a pocket of guys that you could see as like actually closing games or being late inning guys. And then there's a pretty significant drop off. And I would say Iglesias is part of that secondary group, but he gets a 1 year deal, 16 million, lower end of that group, but still in that group. And I'm curious of two things. One is what you read into him signing this early and signing a 1 year deal at that price. And two is if you have any inclination as to the relief arms that you feel as though the Blue Jays are more fixed on.
Yeah, with Iglesias, this one was not overly surprising that he returned to Atlanta. Like he
Mhm.
was mentioned pretty prominently in trade rumors at the deadline, but Atlanta did not move him.
Mhm.
And part of that thinking was that they wanted to sign him back in the offseason. And they ultimately did so. They had to spend a little bit more on a 1 year deal. If it was let's say if it was a multi-year contract, the AAV would have been a little bit lower, but a 1 year deal, I mean, resulted in it being a higher annual average value. So I think that's why we saw it be 16 million. I know that kind of caught some people off guard publicly, but
Mhm.
the going rate for high-end relievers is going to be really high, and that's going to be something we see. I mean, if Iglesias is getting 16 million, you got to wonder what does Edwin Diaz get? What does
Yeah.
Robert Suarez get? And that to me is why I'm not really seeing the Blue Jays being a fit for either of those two. But if we're looking at it, I could see a Devin Williams type who obviously did not have a great season in New York this year. He
Mhm.
struggled, and he'll be the first to tell you that. But if you look at his background in Milwaukee, I got to see it up close for a number of years because I used to live in Milwaukee, covered the team, was with them on a daily basis. He is a tremendous, tremendous pitcher. There's not a pitcher when he gets going, in my eyes, at least from the bullpen perspective,
Mhm.
who can be as dominant as him. And you have to imagine next year, wherever that's going to be, he's going to be closer to the Brewers version than he was with than the version that he was with the Yankees. So to me, he makes sense for the Jays, although his market seems to be pretty extensive, and
Mhm.
I wouldn't be surprised if his contract really kind of surprises people on a multi-year deal level. So maybe that could make the Jays unlikely there, but who knows? The other one is Pete Fairbanks, and that's a player that you guys are obviously very familiar with from his time with the Tampa Bay Rays. He was let go by the Rays this offseason. He's a free agent now.
Mhm.
If you can add him, and he was a very dependable option there for Tampa Bay. Let's say it's a 2 year deal for what, 13, 14 million a year.
Mhm.
To me, I don't really scoff at that. Maybe that's the number somewhere around there. But he can be a real difference maker in the late innings. And it seems like they really want a high leverage reliever in Toronto. Like they're very open to it. And those are two names as of this point that I'm keeping an eye on.
Well, they have to replace Sir Anthony Dominguez if they're not bringing him back. So
Yep.
it's a clear and
Exactly.
obvious hole. And I think based on the kind of only insightful comments that we got from Ross Atkins at his media availability, it was Jeff Hoffman's not married to being the closer. So the idea that they would bring someone in who can at least compete with him or potentially supplant him throughout the course of a regular season if things continue to go the way that they did last year, where it's like he's giving up a ton of home runs, then
Mhm.
yeah, you want to have a guy like Fairbanks or Devin Williams who has experience in that role and who could jump into that. And you feel like there's a measure of bounce back potential for either of those two guys. So those two names make sense to me. What's tougher to predict with them is like we've seen them sign big name starting pitching, right? Like they went out and got Kevin Gossman. They went out and got Hyun-Jin Ryu. They've signed bats, like they signed George Springer. They gave him a big contract. They just paid
Mhm.
Vladdy, $500 million. So I think that if there's like a free agent that is of that kind of caliber, and based on who they've been in on these last couple seasons, they're willing to spend there. With the relief pitching, they've been like their biggest contracts, I think, are Chad Green, which was a disaster, and Jeff Hoffman, which is like pretty mixed results.
Mhm.
If the relief market is hyper competitive, like you put it, I do have my doubts as to whether or not they're going to be in on those guys just because they might stick to those valuations. And the bigger question to me becomes like, are those markets becoming more competitive based on one, how we've seen relief pitching impact postseasons now, where it's becoming more and more and more important? But secondarily, like we just saw a trade deadline where, and I know that they were like the Mason Millers of the world, right? Like we watched two of the best closers in baseball get traded. So that's like a little bit outside of the pocket of like a normal relief pitcher that gets moved. They had term, all these different things. But man, the prices were so much higher than what we've seen for relief pitching, and they kind of continue to grow that I wonder if there's more urgency on front offices now to sign these relievers, knowing how much it's going to cost you from your farm system if you try to address that via trade.
No, that's spot on. That package that the Padres gave up for Mason Miller was a lot, and
Yeah.
it had people around the league talking. Like I remember, like as that trade was happening and the pieces were getting leaked, my thought was just like, "Whoa!" Like AJ Preller clearly wanted that guy, and they also got JP Sears in that deal too. So I mean, they got two pitchers, but they gave up their number one prospect and one of the best prospects in baseball in a bunch of other pieces as well. And if you can go out and sign one of these relievers, like, and you can save your farm system and maybe utilize it in a different way at the deadline, or even keep them. Like we saw some key contributors there for the Jays that were homegrown that came from that farm system. Like those are really valuable pieces. And that's a huge credit to the Jays' player development team. you you have to think that they'd be more inclined to try to hold on to those guys rather than ship them away, which to me would end up being an indication that they should dabble into that relief market. Like they shouldn't get crazy or they shouldn't get stupid by any means
Mhm.
because you have to supplement other parts of the roster. But that being said, like going after a Williams type or a Fairbanks or even like a Ryan Helsley type would make plenty of sense to me. But the most money, I mean, okay, let me start that over. I do think they're going to dabble in the back game, but I also think a Framber Valdez type should be one of their top targets in the offseason here. Like
Yeah.
they need a starting pitcher like that, and he fits a lot of what they like. Like obviously tremendously talented. He's durable. There's questions about like his incident with crossing up his catcher. Like I get that. He gets it too. It's gonna be a question he's gonna have to answer a lot this offseason. And apparently he was at the GM meetings. I didn't see him, but
Mm.
you have to wonder, oh, like, because I think I saw somebody report that at least that he was there. So teams probably have questions about it, and he was probably there to try to answer them, to try to clear that up before free agency really kicks off. But to me, he should be a prime target for them.
So it's kind of funny that this one instance with him has been blown out to like, you got to have this answered at the GM meetings. Like,
Yeah,
if,
crazy. And yeah, there was a
well,
lot of players there. I mean, there was a golf tournament, but still,
yeah, but
there was a lot there.
I just look at that and go, like, and maybe I'm unaware of it, but was this a big issue with Framber Valdez throughout his career? Like the personality, the makeup? Or is this just like one instance? Because I'm not, like, personally, I'm not aware of like Framber Valdez controversies of being a bad teammate outside of that moment.
No, me neither. Like everything I've heard from people around the Astros, and
Mhm.
even Dana Brown was saying it on the record, like he's been a great teammate. They really like him and his competitive makeup and everything about him. But that one instant was, it's got people asking questions and he's gonna have to answer them. But
Mm.
besides that, it just seems like it was an isolated incident rather than like a just I don't know. To me it's one thing that happened, and I hope it doesn't impact his free agency too much or at all, because that'd be pretty unfortunate based
I
on
hope it
what
does
I've
if he
heard.
lands with the Blue Jays. Like I hope that it impacts it
Yeah, get him
severely.
at a discount.
Yeah,
That'd be
like
good. Yeah.
I hope that he ends up being like a cross off for some teams where it's like the NFL draft where they're like, nope, the personality issues take this guy off the board, and then you see again your team benefited directly from this. Your best defensive tackle fell to you because many teams decided that they weren't going to take the risk on that. So I hope that the same thing happens with Fromber. Yeah, so
Yeah,
it's
like a Laramie Tunzel incident on draft
yes,
day.
exactly.
Exactly.
Somebody
Yeah.
get that guy a gas mask. Like this, we need him to have it immediately. Okay, so yeah, it does seem like, and from talking to some other people, I think they share the similar sentiment that you do, which is like they've prioritized starting pitching and that they want to be at the top of the pile of that, and that maybe nothing gets done until that ends up happening. And so this leads me. I know this is going to be a question that makes I think any insider kind of queasy, and you probably won't want to answer it, but I'm going to
Uh-oh.
try to get you to. Right now, if you had to stack the Kyle Tucker sweepstakes, how would you order the top three?
Oh, how would I order the top three? That's a
Yeah.
great question.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have to put the Blue Jays up there.
Yeah.
Like to me, they make they make plenty of sense for him. Like you look at it, I mean, he's an elite bat. He adds an outfielder. He can steal bases.
Mhm.
I mean, defensively, he's very good too. To me, like it makes all the sense in the world. Oh man, can we come back to that? Because
Sure.
I wanna like properly think
Yeah,
about
you
that.
can
Because
come back to it. Well,
but I would definitely put the Jays up there for sure.
so the way that I'll kind of add to this is like again, right now you try to just piece things together, right? Like you're taking
Yep.
in a lot of information from a lot of different places, but also it's important to see how an organization acts, right? And read into their past and the way that they handle things. And
Mhm.
it seems, anyways, that Bo and the Jays could very likely come together on a deal and that the relationship there is solid enough where they do feel as though he can go out to market and explore things and still have constant communication with the team, that's established of what his market is and them matching or exceeding or whatever it is that takes a deal to get done. But this is just my conspiracy brain. I go, wouldn't you be more urgent on Bo Bichette, knowing like losing star power bats for you is not really an
Mhm.
option? You have George Springer getting another year older, and he's off the books a year from now. Santander is not by any means a guarantee for you the following season. You've got a lot of or negative regression candidates on your team that really performed very well throughout the postseason. Like the batting order is deep, but you have to account a little bit for like, are you certain this is what you get from Nathan Lucas, Addison Barger, Ernie Clement, right? Like go on down the line of those players. So the bat question to me remains fairly urgent in terms of you've got to land one of those two guys. But if you're not going to be as urgent with Bo as it seems that they are not, that would lead me to believe that that's because you want to really be in on Kyle Tucker and that you want to have that answered before trying to circle back with Bo Bichette.
No, I think that's valid. I also think that the Jays, they really like Bo Bichette. Like they would definitely want him back. And if you look at it, like you can't blame him. He's a homegrown star. He had a really strong season this year. And like I know a couple years ago, that was a season that had a lot of questions in people's minds and wondering like what exactly is he going to like what's his market going to look like in free agency? What's his price tag going to look like? I think Bichette's going to get a lot more than people think. Like I've seen the Willie Adames type, like the contract comparison. Like I wonder if it's closer to what Xander Bogaerts got with the San Diego Padres, where he got around 280 million. I just my own personal thought, something I've heard kind of poked around the league, but I think that would make a lot of sense. And if I was a team, I'd give that to Bo Bichette. He's a great player. He's someone who I feel like you can definitely like have as a centerpiece in your offense. It's just a centerpiece as your franchise. And the Jays should end up going out and being aggressive in that market. But if you're waiting for Tucker, like I've thought about this a little bit more. Like so you're gonna have probably the Los Angeles Dodgers at least lurking around in that. Do I expect Tucker to go to the Dodgers? Probably not. I think the Giants make a lot of sense, but they seem more focused on pitching than anything at this point. His market, there's going to be a lot of teams that are lurking around in that market. Like you even saw Brian Cashman say that he had a conversation with Casey Close, who represents Kyle Tucker. You have, I mean, the Baltimore Orioles who are also being connected to Tucker as well. There's going to be a lot of teams lurking in this, but for me, it feels a little bit early to suggest like, yeah, there's three potential favorites. That might be a cop-out answer, but I always want to be fair, and I never want to like lead any fan base like down the wrong direction. But it's just so early in this that it kind of feels hard to pinpoint like the three like clearest, most like, even favorites at this point.
So Sean Casey put this out today. I saw this. Actually, it was yesterday. Bo Bichette during 2025, 309 average against fastballs, 312 average against breaking balls, 319 average against off speed. You pay for that. Like,
oh yeah, you don't even think twice.
Yeah. So I would imagine his market to be robust. And this is one, again, I know all these things are early, man. So it's tougher for him, but it still doesn't feel like when you're talking about it right now, you're saying, hey, some guys have him down in this price range of a Willie Adames. Hey, I'm looking at it and saying, like, how could it not end up being closer to Xander Bogaerts? How many teams do you think are going to be in on Bo Bichette? Because that has remained a little mysterious to me. Is like, this is now, like, we're into free agency. And this has been a question now for, I think, 2 seasons since he was injured. Like, what is this guy going to get paid? It seems harder to predict where he's at than a lot of other guys of his ilk from years past. And I'm curious as to why you think that is.
Yeah, as far as Bichette goes, like as you said, yeah, it's early. But like you can look at it like the Jays immediately stand out as a team. I don't think the Braves are going to end up being the team for Bo Bichette. You can look at the Tigers. I mean, I think they would make a lot of sense, and we even saw them kind of poke around, more than poke around last offseason with Alex Bregman. And so it's clear that they're very open to adding an infielder there. Like I don't know, the Boston Red Sox could make some sense. I mean, I don't know about the Dodgers by any means, but I mean, still, like there's going to be plenty of teams that are poking around as far as a Bo Bichette goes. And as you said, like offensively, he's a tremendous, tremendous player. Like he's a complete player. Defensively, you don't know exactly what position he's going to be in long term, but you can figure that out as you go. And to me, he's still an ascending player. He's still young. He's overall just a player that I would invest in. And if I was a team that was contending or wants to like be serious about contending, I would go out and do so. And I'm going to make this one clear. This is not me reporting anything, but I feel like the Los Angeles Angels would be a really good fit for Bo Bichette. Like Artie Moreno is known for spending on different players, or like he likes star players, I should say. And Bo Bichette is a really strong, like he can be a player that they build around there in Anaheim. Do I know anything about them possibly pursuing Bichette at this point? No. John Heyman reported that they checked in on Cody Bellinger. So if they checked in on Bellinger, you'd think they'd at least check in on Bichette. So we'll see. But that is, I don't know. If there could ever be an oddball free agent fit for Bo Bichette, I feel like it would be them.
The only thing, the only pushback I would have to that one is like if you're Bo, I do think he is one of the players on the market right now that winning is a higher priority than for some. And if you're the
Exactly.
Angels, you got to blow him away. Like the market for him is, it's a very different price than I think what the rest is. But if you're the
Mhm.
Angels, like the part of it that makes sense, if you're scarred by the Rendon contract, like a guy who just signed a huge free agent deal with you and then was like, I actually don't like baseball, that Bo Bichette's as far down the concern list of doesn't love baseball, isn't going to give you an honest effort, guys, that there is in the sport. And so, yeah, if you're trying to completely zag in the opposite direction, he would be a pretty good bet. All right, this is one where it's uncomfortable even to bring it up just because when you're saying, hey, the Jays fans have had their hopes and you hate to see them crushed, you
Uh-oh.
know where it lands is with Japanese players. Like, you know, you go to Japan and you think
Yep.
you're getting Sasaki, you are not getting Sasaki. You're getting Miles Straw, which will work out, by the way, if his friendship with Kyle Tucker results in a signing in Toronto. But how involved do you see them being in the Imes and the Murakami markets?
I think Ime would make a whole lot of sense for them. And his market is going to be robust. Like there's going to be a bunch of different teams involved. Seemingly almost every contending team like was mentioned at the GM meetings as a possible fit for him.
Mm-hmm.
Like I expect them to be involved with him. Murakami, like if you want to add an impact bat, like he would be a really strong fit. Like he as far as power goes, I was talking to Foster Griffin, who faced him overseas and faced him a lot. And he said, as far as pure power goes, he was one of the more physically imposing players that he's ever faced. And that he's got a major league body. He's going to end up being someone who has an immediate impact. And yeah, there's questions about how much or his strikeouts and just how many he's going to have at the major league level. But that being said, his impact from a bat and his power is massive. So if I'm the Jays or any contending team, I would be firmly involved in that. I would expect the Jays to be involved to some whatever extent. And if they see those guys being an impact player, kind of like how they ended up seeing a Roki Sasaki type or how they pursued Shohei Ohtani in free agency. I'm not saying that they're Ohtani by any means, but if they feel like they can end up being a serious like game-changing impact player immediately, then I expect them to be involved, and especially on the pitching side, because considering how much they've been connected to pitching and what that it seems to be the priority, I think Ime would definitely be a prime target for them, or at least a prime option for them.
Yeah, like they have now experience of courting these players, and like Sasaki the year before. So you would think that would lend them a little bit more confidence in terms of the approach. And Sasaki claims, anyways, that he was very close to signing with the Blue Jays, and it was a very difficult
Mhm.
decision. But ultimately, when you do look at it, like being on the West Coast is just so important when you're talking about travel that it's really hard for me to look at this and say any of those links are credible, just given that you can knock 5 hours off of what is already an impossibly long flight.
No, it's a valid thing. Like the family considerations part is so real. Like,
Yeah.
and I'm glad you say that too, because I mean, we kind of talked about it at the top of the show, like players showing their personalities, but these players are people. Like they have feelings, they have families, they have all this stuff, and if they can be closer to their families or one of their flights be 5 hours shorter to get to their family, that's a serious like legitimate factor in this, and like it's something that's probably going to be discussed and thought about a lot for these international free agents.
Hmm.
But that being said, what we said with Bichette, and I can even say with Bellinger, like they want to win.
Hmm.
And if you have a chance of, let's say, going to Toronto or going to a team that's not going to contend
Hmm.
and that's closer to home, I feel like still like you probably lean toward Toronto in that case. So
Yeah.
it's a factor, but these guys, they're competitors and they want to win. And that's at the end of the day, it's a big thing for them.
Robert, thanks for making time, man. Again, good luck to what I will say is our Eagles this weekend. And yeah, we'll definitely be bugging you again during the winter meetings. Thanks for making time, buddy.
No, I appreciate you. Thank you very much. Go Birds. And again, hopefully you win some money this weekend
Yeah.
on the Eagles. If not, then I'll send my condolences and
I thought you were
apologize.
going to say money. I was like, good. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, hey, sure, yeah,
Uh,
I mean, I'm a generous guy, but
yeah.
I mean,
Not
who
that generous.
knows? Yeah, but I
Yeah.
appreciate you.
Yeah. All good, man. I'll see you later. Robert Murray, MLB Insider for FanSided. So this is the takeaway from that discussion. When the Arizona Diamondbacks made it to the World Series, no one looked at that and said, well, they're going to be back there again next year. Wow, look at the run. Now they're changing the perception of the Arizona Diamondbacks. And that's important context when looking at the Blue Jays situation is when Shapiro and Atkins say this has always been a desirable place to play. I mentioned it with Ennis earlier this week, that's like a smart way of doing things where you go, listen, people already love it here. And that's been on the record for quite some time. The Blue Jays have landed free agents. They landed Hyun-Jin Ryu. They landed Kevin Gossman. They landed George Springer. They landed Jeff Hoffman. They landed Anthony Santander. Like, they paid Vladimir Guerrero Jr. $500 million. I know he was internal, but that's still a needle-moving free agent signing, obviously, in terms of the way that you are perceived as spenders. Looking at the Blue Jays as a win-now team tells you that executives and players around the game are saying the run that they went on is sustainable, that this was not a fluke. This was not a one-off. This was not like, wow, they just did catch lightning in a bottle. And I know that there is a large portion of the fan base that is down in the dumps right now because I've talked to a bunch of you. I've spoken directly, and this is like my friends included. Sam, who think that there is real potential here for the Jays to just like completely fall off a cliff next year. They strike out in free agency. They do all this stuff. Like, yes, the money matters more than anything. Sorry, it does. If you're not going to be at the top of these guys aren't taking massive discounts to remain with the Toronto Blue Jays across the board. Maybe Shane Bieber did, but a few other guys did opt into their deals. Yes, granted for more money, but do I think it's going to matter for some? Sure. In terms of more financial stake, yes. But when we're talking about the guys that matter, right? Like the Framber Valdez's, the Dylan Cease's, the Kyle Tuckers, the Bo Bichette's, they're not coming at a massive discount. You're going to have to pay. You're going to have to be uber aggressive and at the top of the pile of the market like you were with George Springer, where you gave him an extra year on his contract in order to make him to sign. With Kevin Gossman, where you offered him more money than anybody else. Like, that's the way these things get done. Same thing with Hyun-Jin Ryu. It's not often that you're getting a free agent who has the pick of the litter, and it turns out that they stuck with you for the vibes, or they went with you just purely on the vibes of the competitive nature of the team. Like, again, Juan Soto made it to a World Series and chose more money with the Mets than staying with the New York freaking Yankees. So the idea that Bo Bichette is just like a lock to return if they miss out on Kyle Tucker, I think is foolish. But what I would say is that when it comes to the tiebreakers, if you are at the top of the pile and you are offering the same money as a lot of these places, or very similar money, that it's pretty important executives, agents, and players think Toronto is going to win now and in the future versus, say, a team like the Angels who might come to you with a big bag of money, but what confidence would you have that they're going to win? That the Jays are viewed in a different category than teams that have made it to the World Series, like the Rays, like the Diamondbacks, and then fallen off a cliff. And that matters. Subscribe to this podcast, Spotify, Apple, helps the show. Reach out anytime on Twitter and Instagram at JD Bunkis. Hit the thumbs up on YouTube, and if you're watching on Sportsnet Plus, thank you. Quick break, and we'll come back and hit what we missed. Most important time of the show right now. Who wants to win a bunch of cash while doing the best thing this holiday season? Sportsnet 59 of the Fan is all in supporting the 50-50 Fortune for Sick Kids. It's a 50-50, so the more money we raise, the more kids we can help, and the more holiday cash you can win. The current take-home prize is guaranteed to be $100,000. Buy your tickets at 5050fortune.ca. That's 5050, like 5050, fortune.ca. Or text the word, is it the same thing? Same word? Money? Whatever it is today. Text money to 590, and we'll send the link right to your phone. 18 plus, please play responsibly. Standard message and data rights may apply. Lottery license RAF 1518410. Please participate in this because, yeah, you can feel charitable and gamble at the same time. What a way. What a way to combine two of the best things ever. Armin, what do we got? What do we miss?
Hey, Bunk. Actually, can we do a quick wellness check on you? It's been 3 weeks, 2-hour shows plus Leafs talk. How are you feeling? Are you
Great.
tired?
No, I'm a machine.
You're wired?
I'm good. I'm money. I'm money in the bank. Listen, man, I love sports. I want more. I don't care. I'll stay up. I'll watch the games. I enjoy what I do. I love what I do. I'm grateful for what I do. So no complaints.
Do you take naps often? Because I know you're
Mm.
watching games late.
Not too often, no.
Not a nap guy?
No, not really. It's just like right now, you take a nap and the day is gone. All the sunlight
Good
is
point.
evaporated.
Yeah, it's
So,
nighttime already.
yeah, like, do I love a nap? Yes, a nap is great. You crush the proper nap for sure, but I'm not a great napper. I'm the type of napper where I sleep too long. And then I'm like, if I go to sleep, then I'm already bad to fall asleep in the first place. I need it where it's like I'm watching a West Coast game and I'm kind of paying attention and I'm sort of in and out on it. And then it's like, all right, that's good. And flip it off, shut it down. Yeah. Like yesterday, I watched a little Avalanche and Rangers after Leafs talk. And it's like, yeah, all right, let's wind down with some sports, collect a few thoughts for the show, and then, yeah, shutter. But no, nap, like I said, I'm a nap for like 2-hour guy. I can't do the
20-minute power?
the NASA move of 29 minutes or whatever it is. That's the ideal nap. I've tried that. I'm not that guy. I just sleep throughout the entire day, and then I'm a vampire at night. So, no, I try not to.
Okay, let's get into some news that dropped yesterday. LaMelo Ball, Kelly Iko from Yahoo Sports reports that LaMelo is growing disgruntled. Shocker, another disgruntled star in the NBA. LaMelo did quote tweet the article with the clown emoji,
Can I just say,
which
I
is
hate
a very
that.
Gen Z move.
Yeah,
It was, right?
but it's not even Gen Z. It's just embarrassing. Like, okay,
Like, explain yourself.
yeah, just if you're going to say that, just write, this isn't true, which is fine.
Yeah.
But taking the shot of just like calling a guy a clown who I don't know what his sources are. I've never heard of that guy before yesterday.
He's so reliable, man. He's
Okay.
not the type to make something up.
Sure, but I just think that like all you're doing if you're LaMelo Ball, and there's a difference here to me is LaMelo Ball, you would argue, well, like, okay, well, he's saying clown and he invites scrutiny and controversy, but this guy's inviting scrutiny and controversy to LaMelo Ball. It's like, yeah, except for he's a reporter. He's going off of what his sources are saying. And also, this is part of the job. Part of the job is you get thrown into trade rumors. And like you can reply. I'm not saying LaMelo shouldn't even say something, but to just like put the clown emoji, maybe I'm being overly sensitive about this, but it just makes me feel like all you're doing is getting the LaMelo sycophants calling this guy a clown and like getting in his mentions. He's probably getting all kinds of horrific messages today. And I think it's like, LaMelo Ball is a guy who's like accused of driving over a kid's foot who tried to sign an autograph. His career has not exactly been not clownish to me. So for him to fire that at a reporter doing his job, I was like,
Good
this
point.
makes me think more that you're not the kind of guy I would want to trade for anyway. So enjoy Charlotte, brother.
Yeah, that's what I was going to get to. I'm like, how do you see that culminating? Like with Ja,
Desperate team.
him. I think, so what I think, Bunk, is that there's so many desperate teams like stuck in situations. The NBA is bound for like a 4-team
Ja's not
trade.
going to Charlotte, bro.
I'm just saying 4-team trade that's going to make on the surface no sense for anyone, but they're just going to do it because everyone's so stuck. It kind of feels that way.
I don't know. I just think that there's a few guys in the league right now where Ja at least has the higher proven ceiling where you look at him and go, man, he's had some real winning moments. And I think personally there is more of a winning player there than LaMelo, and the other guy I was going to reference is Trae Young. So there's these three guys that kind of feel like they're all stuck in a situation where nobody really wants them. And if you're going to move them, they're going to be picky about the place that they go. And the fit with the team that they're going to is kind of curious. Like,
I think Trey's proven more than both of those guys.
no chance. Trae Young has not proven more than
That
Ja Morant.
conference finals run, he was immaculate. He
No.
cooked the Knicks, Madison Square Garden villain. Ja hasn't won a playoff series.
Ja to me is like,
LaMelo's never been to the playoffs or
yeah,
play in.
LaMelo is definitely the least of them, but Trae Young to me is like he had a nice little hot run against a couple of falling apart teams, but ultimately the Hawks look happier without him, and they play. Although they lost the Spurs yesterday, again, another game I watched a chunk of, and Hawks now have dropped 2 straight winnable games that I thought they were supposed to kind of be in the mix on. If they're the Hawks are one of these teams where like the whole NBA world keeps telling me to believe in them.
Yeah.
And then I don't watch the games where they play well. And then I'm like, okay, fine, I'll watch the Hawks. And then I watch them play the Spurs without Wemby, Castle, and they were missing the kid, Harper, last night. And Keldon Johnson. The Hawks, the defensive team of the year last night, they gave up a 45-point quarter and a 40-point fourth quarter. Okay? So to that Spurs team, to Keldon Johnson. So forgive me if I'm not in on them quite. But yeah, maybe that's the trade. Just trade LaMelo to Atlanta and trade Trey to go play with Concanipple and ruin that Hornets thing. I don't know. Like, again, I just, if it's me and I'm a fan and you're telling me that my team is getting any of those 3 guys, I'm not really excited about it. I don't think any of the 3 of them get it.
How about for them? Who do you think for the player themselves? Like, I think for LaMelo, I wish he didn't do the clown tweet. And I wish he leaned into it and said, I do want to get traded.
I think the only way those guys end up working is if they end up in a place where there's like insanely great culture. So if they ended up in like Golden State, could it work? I don't even think necessarily it would because those guys are so much older. And like we've seen how it has gone with Jonathan Kuminga, for example, right? Like it's not a perfect place. But what would happen if LaMelo or Trae Young ended up on the Spurs? And like now that spot is blocked because they're not moving off De'Aaron Fox for those guys or like taking reps away from Dylan Harper. But yeah, you know, like would OKC buy low on a dude like that? I don't know. But it has to be a place where you really feel as though the players around you, the general manager, the structure from the top down is so strong that they can get you to commit to playing a certain way. And with those 3 in particular, it's not a bet I'm making unless I am a unbelievably desperate general manager who is dying to make a move. And the reason why like the flips don't work is that it's like you're just trading one problem for another and you're not in markets where I think those guys are going to buy in.
Clippers, maybe. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Yeah, sure. People are saying Clippers, but it's like, yeah, no, Clippers culture right now looks like it's in great shakes. Like, you know, well, if you can have LaMelo Ball learn from James Harden and the winning that he's had is like, wow, what could you get? It's just like, sure. They're just in a group of players where it doesn't excite me at all, whatever it is that happens with their careers. Ja a little bit more because I think his issues are more like, if you could just figure this out, like to just be like, I'm an NBA player and I really want to win. That, like, I think he could do it more than the other 2.
Right now, he's the AirPod hooper, balling in Yeezy slides. Step back threes.
I can't stress how little, like, you guys brought up to me one day where it was like, John Moran to the Raptors room. We're like, what would you do if they could make a trade? And I'm like, no, not interested. Pass.
I rather LaMelo. LaMelo's so creative and fun to watch. That's what I'll say. And like,
buddy, you don't watch LaMelo.
I haven't seen a competent team with him.
LaMelo. I haven't seen a competent team with LaMelo. Anyway, we got to go. We'll see you next week. Enjoy the weekend.